Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll just get started. Welcome to our session, Red Hat Business Automation Primer. My name's Phil Simpson. I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Red Hat's Business Process Management and Business Rules products. Today, I'm also delighted to be joined by Prakash Aradia, our Product Manager, Mark Proctor, our Chief Architect. I'm going to give a very brief, 5-minute introduction to the business automation portfolio in general. Then I'm going to hand over to Prakash and Mark, who are going to take us through the details of the product and the roadmap and so on. So to get started, here's something to think about. Right? Application development is changing. Right? We're moving from the model kind of on the left here, which we've been using perhaps for 20 or 30 years now. Typical model for producing applications. IT developers use standard tools like Java development tools, integrated development environments, to write code that gets deployed ultimately as applications, right? And we use this term monolithic applications to describe the types of applications that have very typically been produced over the last 20 years. It means that they're, for the most part, very large, they're difficult to understand, and kind of hard to change. We see the application development process moving more to the model I've illustrated on the right here. And there are two major differences here. Firstly, at the top of that diagram, a lot of new technologies coming in now to really help address that monolithic application problem. So containers, microservices, and I'm sure you've heard all about that at many other sessions at the conference. Something that I think is equally important and really worth taking note of, though, is on the lower part of this diagram. What we're seeing is it's applications now are being produced not just by IT, not just by developers working independently. The business is becoming much more involved in the development of new applications, to the point where they're even taking responsibility, if you like, and accountability for significant parts of the application logic. But of course, business users don't write code for the most part. Instead, what they typically are going to do is write or create business models of the business processes, of the decisions that an organization's taking, in a way that code, those models, can now be incorporated into applications, either by themselves or in combination with code written by IT. This is a fundamental transformation of the way that the applications are being developed. When we look at the left-hand side of this diagram and the business models, the business modeling tools, there are many technologies that are being brought to bear on this problem. Business process management, business rules are two that are very important there, but there are plenty of others. You may have heard of robotic process automation. There's a lot of AI technologies coming into this side of things as well. One way I like to think about this is that these business folks are still writing code. They're writing source code. It just doesn't look like Java. It doesn't look like COBOL or any other language. Looks maybe something like this. This is a decision model and notation model of a business decision. It's a graphical representation that it makes it much easier for the business user to define the rules behind making an operational decision in a business. It might look like this. This is business process modeling notation, right? This is the steps in a business process. But the way to think about this is nonetheless, this is source code. This is the code of an application. In this particular case, three separate applications, in fact, that define how the front end and the back end interact in order to accomplish this business process. So this is what we see happening, but an observation that's worth making is this is actually very hard. This is very difficult. The diagram on the right looks pretty simple, but making that work in practice, creating the technology that allows you to bring both the business and the IT side of this equation together in a way that makes sense is extremely difficult. Allowing, in particular, the business to create applications that are secure and scalable and so forth, that follow the same governance mechanisms that IT uses, is extremely challenging. I think that Red Hat is uniquely positioned to help with that particular problem. And key to this are products like OpenShift. OpenShift is the platform that we can plug these different development environments into a single CI/CD pipeline that allows you to build these types of applications, that brings the business and the IT side together. On the business side, we have tools like Red Hat Decision Manager, our business rules product, our BPM product in this category too, that provide the modeling capability for the business user. And on the right-hand side for the developer, some of the new development tools that we're rolling out. I think we also announced at this conference things like the Red Hat OpenShift application runtimes, or RAW. This combination of products, I think, is unique to Red Hat. It gives us a unique ability to address this new way of developing applications. So with that, what I would like to do is hand over to Prakash, who's now going to take us through the product overview and roadmap for the business automation products. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. So we've come a long way. The Red Hat, we've been having the BPM offering, the workflow solution, as well as the business rules management platform for quite some time. But our enterprise customers and the line of business people, they expect a lot more than just a workflow solution, right? So they expect a much bigger, they want a solution. They want a solution to their problem. So we've been following their footpath and their understanding, what their expectations or their needs are. And we are also, for the last couple of years, we've been developing a lot of capabilities in our product portfolio. And this is what we have now. So we have a business automation. It's a redefined portfolio of our technologies. So it's not just the workflow solution. It's not just the business rules engine sort of thing, right? It's much more than that. It's a combination of capabilities that we cobbling them together and releasing as a business automation. So it's a portfolio of things. So it includes naturally decision management. So the typical things that you would expect for building your decision services, managing them in a microservices architecture, whatever it makes sense. And then the business optimizer is a capability that we brought into the product a few years ago. It has gone through a long development cycle over the last few years. I'm going to show you some of the new capabilities that we have brought into the portfolio. And then the process management, the typical the workflow management capabilities that you expect. And the new thing that we are introducing starting from the new release, the rollout, is the application management. As I said, the line of business just don't want the workflow. They want a solution. They want to see how the process, the flow, everything comes together to meet the end user expectation. So we are happy to announce the inclusion. We intend to include Entando Application Manager as part of our solution going forward. And in the near future, we'll also intend to enable providing the mobile service capability out of the box in our BPM portfolio. A couple of months ago, we rolled out our first product out of this portfolio called Red Hat Decision Manager, so which included decision management and the business optimizer capabilities as one product offering. And in a few weeks, we'll be announcing a new product called the Red Hat Process Automation Manager. So that's going to include all the capabilities that we talked about, the decision management, the process management, and the optimizer, the application manager, and the mobile services capability in the near future. We have done a lot of things. You're going to see a lot of exciting stuff, some of the demos, some of the videos. Mark is going to walk through some of the exciting stuff that we have worked on over the last couple of years. All of this can be put together in the 4 major themes, right? The 4 major capabilities that we are bringing into this release. The first one is the cloud-native process application. So everything that you're going to see, like working natively in the cloud environment, taking advantage of the infrastructure that cloud provides. And the second thing is the dynamic case management. We have had support for case management in the past, but at the lower level APIs. But now we have a full-grown, a matured support for the case management capabilities. And the third one is the modern process-driven applications. It's not just the a thing, right? Ultimately, you want to provide your end users a solution for them to solve their business problems. So we're trying to bring all those things together and make it really easy for the line of business to be able to visualize a solution. And the last one is multi-persona experience. There are a lot of different people involved in the business operations. Everybody has their different needs. So we are bringing a good experience for each of those different entities in the organization. I'm going to quickly walk through what each one of these means. So starting with the cloud process automation. So there are different aspects of the business process management, right? So there are process modeling, there are process execution, and the process administration, and then the process application. So what we are able to bring together in this upcoming release is to get each one of these aspects fully deployed in the cloud, in our OpenShift environment, and fully configured to work with each other. And then you can an ease of use, you can get this all configured and running in the OpenShift environment, and then being able to scale them as needed. I mean, you probably don't need a lot of nodes for the process modeling. You maybe can get away with a few of them, and same with the process administration. And then for process execution, you probably will going to need a lot of the nodes running, right? And then when you build the process application using our the Entando application manager, you should be able to spin off those applications as its own nodes, and then you can scale them as you need. So that's the beauty of this. Everything is running in the in OpenShift in the cloud environment. They're all you don't need to be running anything in an on-premise. If you choose to run any of these things in an on-premise, you can still take advantage of that. So we do support a hybrid cloud environment. So that's the cloud native execution, everything running in OpenShift. So now, when you think about the cloud architecture, there are a lot of expectation. There are a lot of choices that you may have. Do you want it to be immutable, or do you want it to be dynamic? You can create a service of your whole application, right? Application as a service. You can go through the S2I process and then deploy the whole thing, or you want to be able to dynamically update the your business rules or process on the fly as you work through this. So you want to have that kind of architecture. Or it could be what stages you are in. You are in a trial, or you are in a development, or staging, or production. So each one of them may have a different kind of configuration. If I'm doing some trial, I probably don't need any database, right? Or I probably don't need any storage. For non-production, I don't care about HTTPS. Likewise, there are so many different combination of things that you can imagine. But just think about it. When we release the product, we are going to have 5 different images, right, for the OpenShift. We're going to have the business central image, the execution server image, process administration image, and then we'll have the smart router and the controller. That's quite a lot, and then the combination of these things. So it can get really complex. So that's where we bring in the templates, right? So templates will make it really easy to work through this. Imagine this architecture that we talked about. So we can provide you a template to tie all these things together with just one click of a button. You can get all this environment fully set up with everything that is going through, deployed in the cloud environment. All that you need to do is you can get started going into the process modeling, bring up your business central, build your first business process, and then click through a bunch of stuff, and then it provisions the workflow into the process execution in the cloud world, and then go to the process administration. You can look at all the processes that are deployed, and then you kick off the app manager, Internet App Manager, and you can go there and you can build your process, the app that are already configured to the execution server, all the environment. And now the app that you create, that app itself can be deployed in the cloud environment to take advantage of the scaling, all of the stuff. So everything can be done in a native way with one single template that we're going to provide. Out of the box, we'll be providing many templates, probably about 10 to 12 templates you're going to see when the product comes out. So one of the templates is going to reflect the architecture that we talked about. So that's a cloud architecture. So now the case management. This is another major development that we are unveiling in the new release. We did have a good low-level case management support in the past, but now our customers expect ease of use, ease of adoption, right? So the case management, there are different kind of personas, whether it's a case manager or a case worker or a case modeler. Each one of them have a different expectation of visualization of the cases. The modeler, they want to be able to visually model the cases in a very simple flow, and then the case workers and the case manager, they want to interface with the system to work with that. So we have an extensive support for all the semantics and conceptual support of the cases, through our system. The case modeler. So today we're going to, starting with 7.0, you're going to use our process modeler, which is enhanced to support some of the case aspects. And we are in the roadmap. We are working towards building out a much more intuitive case modeler to bring to the product in the near future. But in the meantime, you can take advantage of the designer concepts to build the case aspects. So you can build the case projects, and like the way it is all mapped to the high-level APIs that we provide. and then put that through the execution, and our execution engine can process not just the BPM entry diagrams, it also will process the case semantics. And then at the end, we do provide an out-of-the-box case view app, or you could take advantage of the app builder, app manager from Entando to build much more richer the case applications that you would like to see. All the typical expectation, like you would see, whether it's you can start from a semi-structured or the process to much more dynamic process, which involves all the case semantics. So I'll skip through that, and then here are some examples of the apps that you could think about. Like one of the app that we do have out of the box, which kind of a simple case looking case. The end user case application, or you could use the Entando builder to build a much more richer application for the case application that you have. So that's about the case management. Now let's talk about the modern process-driven application. So we were talking about that earlier, right? So the customers, the enterprise, the line of business, they just don't want just a workflow. They want something, a fully baked solution. So we started talking about this process-driven application. So the expectation from the line of business is from the business perspective, they want these applications to be customer-centric, right? It's just, it's not like, okay, what the IT goes on and builds a bunch of workflows, and then another set of group or the citizen developers going out and building some applications around it. These applications need to be fully thought through, and they need to be customer-centric. And this application needs to be intelligent, right? In today's world of AI, people want a lot more intuitive knowledge about the work they're executing on. So they want it to be a lot more intelligent, so you can take advantage of the decision management capabilities that we provide in the platform to make these applications intelligent. And they need to be omni-channel, right? It's not just today's world, people just don't expect to work on a desktop, on a web application, right? They need to be on multiple channels with all the gadgets that you have that need to be available. From the technology perspective, these process-driven applications, they need to be distributed, right? The microservices architecture that you talk about, that you hear about all the time, so that's great. You can create more siloed services, and you can bring them all together and build a fully nicely integrated solution for the line of business to work through their business operation. And then they need to be cloud native. So we talked about the cloud native architecture earlier, right? So what are we doing with to support this modern application, process-driven application? So first thing is, we recognize, we don't want to get started with everything from the scratch. So we do want to provide some out-of-the-box solutions, right? Everybody wants, okay, give me something that already kind of look like what my solution for my problem is. So we recognize the value in doing that. So this is where we are introduced in our previous release of VM, one of the first template called Employee Roster. I don't know if you have seen that. The Employee Roster, it's a beautiful example. It's pretty much you can just take it and use it as is in your situation, right? You can define all the staffing, the skill level, and all the available slots. You can easily configure, and even anybody, even your marketing person can go and just build a nice schedule builder for your problem that they're trying to solve. So that's the level of the flexibility that this solution provides. So these are the templates that we are looking forward to start delivering as part of our future roadmap. And then vehicle routing is another one that we are looking into delivering. Skill-based task routing is another popular request that we get from our customers. So when the tasks are generated for the workflows, based on some way we want to optimize based on the geography or based on the language support and things like that. You want to route those tasks to individual groups. You can do those things using the skill-based routing capability. So a combination of that with the BPM is a great story. So we have some of those examples. So we are bringing that into the product. And then the next step is to be able to build that rich application experience, right? So that's a new concept that we are bringing into 7.0 product. So that is through the Entando App Manager. You can build faster applications around the business flows that you have created, or the decision services that you have deployed, and so forth. So that's the experience. So in a conceptually, like, you could think about multiple applications that were interfacing with your workflows. Whether your workflows or decisions, they're all running in your automation manager. There could be a bunch of customer-facing applications interfacing with the system, kicking off services and kicking off the workflows and things like that. And then there could be a combination of back office applications, whatever makes sense for the target end users that you are building. You could build those things with those tools. Now, the last theme that we are delivering in this release is the multi-persona experience. I mean, traditionally in the past, we were always like, we had one tool, like a Business Central, everything for everybody, right? Which is good. I mean, we came a long way from there, but I think now for over the last few years working with our customers, we recognize, there are a lot of different personas that exist in the organizations. So there could be, a process manager or a process manager wanting to be able to manage the business operations aspects, a citizen developer who's kind of more keen on building, my end user applications, not so much worried about the workflows, and I want to rapidly build, like, I can see all the assets there. I can go and drag and drop a bunch of stuff, and I can build a quick app so that I can enable my line of business to move forward with their business operations. So that kind of users, and then the case manager dealing with the day-to-day cases. They're like a typical end user, have no understanding of what is behind the scene with all the technologies. So that's their expectation. And then, like, the IT administrator, the knowledge workers. So likewise, there are so many different personas are interfacing with this system, having their own expectation and their needs to work with the system. So for each of those personas, we recognize they need, they have different kinds of tools they need to work with, right? So like, with the process, for the process manager, they can look at all the list of things that they're working with, from the modeling perspective. So we have greatly enhanced our modeling experience. You're going to see some of those things in Mark's presentation. So bringing in this new perspective of this experience for our business analysts to work with, building this business processes and so forth. And the whole the experience has got a major facelift. And at the same time, for the API, for the developers still care about the flexibility and the access to the APIs to do whatever they want to do. So we continue to provide, we continue to deliver those flexibility to be able to work with our system. Whether you want to use all the tools that we provide, or you want to bring in your own tools to plug it in with our platform, that's still supported as part of our experience. And the last thing is, and we are able to work with a lot of our partners. We do recognize that we can't do everything in the space, right? So we do have opportunities to work with our partners to enhance the experience for our customers. So we are happy to work with our partner called Entando, so who provide a complete digital experience platform. So not just limited to the process-driven applications, but you want to go beyond that and build a complete experience, developer experience, the user experience for your end users. You can take advantage of a lot of the pieces that comes with Entando. We work with the Trisotech for a modeling experience enhancement, where you want to when you have extensive need for a business analyst to interface with the system, model the business aspects, whether DMN or BPM tool, they can use their tool to build those things and then transition to our platform, implement and execute and manage. And the last one is we recently built this relationship with a company called WorkFusion. So they are our RPA partner. So we'll soon be doing some activities to showcase how our two product technologies can come together to solve some real-world situations. The last aspect that I have is like, okay, good. So we have done a lot of these things. We are rolling this out in our upcoming release. And where do we go next? So the market is shifting. A lot of exciting things are happening in the market. It's not just the BPM alone anymore. People don't care about just the workflows. So there are things that are impacting the marketplace that we are in, whether it's real-time decisions or analytics or the RPA. And in a cognitive AI, there are a lot of our customers we have seen that they're using technologies, like things like Spark and bringing them together and building really sophisticated solutions and the low code and so forth. So there are a lot of activities happening in the community. There are a lot of developments happening to kind of touch each of these areas. So from here, I want to bring Mark to share some of those highlights.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Proctor. I'm the Chief Architect for the Decision Manager and Process Automation Manager products. I've only got 20 minutes. It's a very short time to try and cover quite a lot. I'm going to start with the cloud. And I'm trying to get an idea across to you of sort of what we're going to be delivering for 7.0 and where we're going to go from there. When we talk about the cloud and we talk about roadmaps, we find it's useful to talk in terms of maturity. So level 1 is cloud viable. That generally means that you've taken what you have, moved it across the cloud, and done some minimal changes to get it working to a reasonable level. Actually, the one before that is just lift and shift, where literally it goes across and it just works with nothing to do. But that's not often, especially for more complex systems. Cloud native means now you've got a degree of scaling. It's taking advantage of some of OpenShift's facilities, and it's generally a good experience. But it doesn't yet elastic auto-scale. So level 3 is when you really start to pay off from a cloud environment, where it's automatically scaling out as you add more users, as you add more demand. And level 4 is hosted. So if we go back to the 6 series, we actually managed to do a lift and shift for the runtime execution servers. So we already have some customers using the runtime engines on OpenShift already. So that is level 1. That is still cloud viable, even though it was a lift and shift. When we went to 7.0, the authoring, for instance, was not able to lift and shift. We actually had to go through a series of steps, and I'm going to come on to this in a second, to adapt that to make it cloud viable. We then managed to further improve the process executions to make these to level 2. So we introduced something called the smart router, and it's a very cool piece of technology in the cloud that allows us to do horizontal scaling of our engines, and the smart router then does aggregations and routings to make that look as though it's one big system. It's a very sophisticated technology that allows us to get very large degrees of scalability in the cloud for our users. In fact, if you are looking to build software as a service and you want to be able to do automation, we're hoping this will be your sort of weapon of choice. And monitoring as well. The monitoring hasn't had any big upgrades yet. That's still sort of cloud viable. Then in the future, we're going to move authoring to cloud native. We're working through something there. So this is going to be after 7.0. It is the highest priority for us afterwards to get sort of horizontal scaling of the authoring environment of the workspaces. And then we will move the runtime execution servers to cloud mature so that they get the elastic scaling. So about authoring, this is what we have now. We couldn't do a lift and shift because Helix and Zookeeper, the things we use for clustering, simply did not work. So we have moved to something that uses the adaptation to cloud viable, uses OpenShift technologies for those. And level 2 is about introducing the concept of scalable workspaces, which means that every user will auto-scale it horizontally for the changes in the work they do in there. And that'll ensure that we can scale to very large numbers of users. And that's our next highest priority after GA. I'm going to talk very briefly about the user experience and design of what we're delivering in GA, because it helps set an understanding of where the roadmap is going for us, because it's now the concept of personas and UXD is really integral to what we're doing. And I just want to get across a delta of the big difference we have in the 6 series. So 6 series has a large amount of configuration and command line to get going. So you have to be an expert just to get going. If you want to add a user, you have to know the command line for that. Everything was pre-pattern fly, so we just used a standard bootstrap theme. And it didn't look very good. It wasn't very attractive. For the bits of configuration that we could do, this is what it looked like. You know, we just hacked together something that worked. And this is safe for adding repositories. We did some hacks for working around navigation of repositories, and it kind of worked, but it didn't. It gave a very nice experience. And again, this is all pre-pattern fly. And this is the project settings. I'm showing you this because I'm going to show you what it looks like now, how it's improved. The little square bit up there is just making sure that you understand that this is the project settings, which we're going to come to in a second. And we had disjointed applications, which means we had this very powerful dash builder, which is going to be a central part of my presentation coming up. And, but it was a completely different application, different experience, different technologies. It wasn't connected beyond the back end. And even when we had, say, the forms there, where they were more integrated, it still had a disjointed experience because it was basically integrated in an iframe. Zooming in there. So we have gone through a massive rewrite over the last year, or a revamp is a better way of saying it, to bring a whole new experience to our platform. And a big part of that is, so this is the homepage we have now, and you have the navigation to your, where it's highlighted there. We also introduced something called the mega menu. And the mega menu is a quick way to move around without having to go back to the homepage. So you can see that there's two ways to navigate through things. We've introduced the concept of spaces and breadcrumbs for navigation, so it makes it very easy now to have a more content-oriented approach to your content instead of the little quick switches you saw in the previous diagram. And we've done our people from UX did a lot of thought to make sure that when you first go in, if there's nothing in there, don't show an empty list. There is your sort of helping you to get started, letting you know to create a project. So create a space. So when you add the spaces, there it shows how, currently there's 0, but it would show how many spaces are in there. And then when you have a space, it will make it easy for you to start putting some samples in. We have revamped how you start creating assets. This is adding, the mortgages example. And when you go in, we've updated how you look at your assets, whether it's forms or projects, whatever, trying to make things much more appealing, much more content-orientated, much less like an IDE. And then the asset creation, again, this has been made much more visual. Instead of a quick list, it's laid out, it's more contextual. We now have metrics. This is all reusing Dash Builder, so you can get a good insight into your spaces and into your projects. And it's a bit more on the metrics there. And I mentioned before, the project settings has all been improved. We now also have UIs for actual settings that's been inspired by OS X. And you can now add users and you can do permissions all from within the UI. So we've really tried to get an end-to-end experience that is a whole new level over what we had. The next, I can't do everything that we have that's either new or coming up. One thing I have focused on is the new BPM Designer. This has been a rewrite from scratch. We tried to deliver something that is of commercial quality, that if you use Visio or OmniGraffle, I want this to be better. So I've got a little video. It only runs for 2 minutes, and what I do is I start off with a messy diagram, and I just tidy it up. So if you ever use the previous designer, it takes a little bit of time to get everything equidistance, and what this has is real-time rendering of all your connections. It has both alignment and distribution, so it will indicate when something's equidistributed. We have previews on the top right, so as you move things around, you see the previews. You've got the tree layouts down there, so it's all the things you would expect. I'm just going to start that, and it runs for about, it's very quick, about 2 minutes. So I'm just tidying up now. It's just, there we go, so it's showing that it's all in one line. And there, can you see that? Yeah, so it shows when things are equidistant as well, so it'll show the distance between the things there. So it makes it very easy to get things equidistant between any number of shapes. And what's quite nice and interesting is that often it will show a relationship between shapes you weren't even thinking about because it scans the entire page, which is kind of what you expect if you use OmniGraffle. So I'm just moving things around, showing how all the grid lines show up. For those at the back, I apologize if you can't see the guided lines coming in. And of course, it has the snap there as well to make it easy to get your lines lined up. There you go. So that snaps in the docking. And likewise, you can do selections, and the selection thing has real-time rendering. So it means that if you've used older products and some of the many web-based products, when you move something around, it shows you a ghost, and only when you let go does it do the full rendering. So in this, it's rendering it live as you move anything. And that is quite sophisticated for a purely web-based solution. And I say it's what people would expect from something commercial. So I think I just... showing the properties. So we've done a lot of work on the properties. So I morphed this into a different type of task. So here it's a human task and a script task. And we've done a lot of work on the properties now. One of the nice things about this is that it is purely stencil-based. And we can apply this to new systems. And I'm going to show you decision model notation engine now. So it's very easy for us now to build any other type of diagramming. I'm just adding a new connection in now, and it's going to show you the flow-based addition of nodes. There is a section in a minute about the roadmap on this. So this is a very new product for us. It is, we still have a lot of BPM2 to do, so we've implemented enough to be useful, but there's a long way to go with regards to the rest of the BPM2 spec. Just going to show off the palette, and then it's finished. So yeah, we have to implement more of the nodes. We want to do a really good enhancement now with the work items to make it easy to do connections to FTP, to Twitter, to embedding case management stuff. The work items are extension mechanisms of that. We will have continued UXD, like line splicing. We still have to add simulation. And much longer term, we do want to introduce multi-user collaboration. So next we're going to go straight on to the DMN video. This is very early in the labs. There's been no UXD yet. For some reason, the shapes on the left and the palette, this is all going to be redone. This is even alpha quality. But I want to give an idea of where we're going. This is reusing the same technologies as the designer. So I hope everyone went to Matteo's excellent DMN talk. For people that don't know, DMN is the decision model notation standard. And what you're doing here is modeling your decisions. So the bottoms there are your inputs. Oh, it's gone. Sorry, I was going to try and do an indication there. Anyway, the bottoms there with your inputs, the square ones are your decisions. And within those decisions, you can come in and start authoring different types of logic. The way that DMN works is that everything is a context. A context is a key value pair. Those keys should all be unique. They're not in the demo. And then within each of the cells, you can put the value. And the value can be anything. The value could be a decision table. It could be another context because it's fully recursive. The value could be an expression. It could be a function. It could be a table. So I think we come in now. So these are the different things that can go in. And it's going to add a relation, which basically means that the value for the key that's on the left-hand side there would be this table. And that becomes something that can be referenceable. Now we're going to add a decision table. So the results of this decision table will be made available under the key, which is, it says my name there. They should all be unique. But I say this is pre-alpha. But we're trying to show you what is coming much, much later. And it is really quite sophisticated. And again, actually, even the grid-based diagramming there was done with the same, not quite the diagramming stuff, but the core canvas technology is all built the same. So very last, I'm going to get on to easy building software that we've been building. So Rakesh mentions we have a relationship with Entondo, and what I'm showing here is work we are doing in collaboration. We, within Red Hat, will generally be focusing just on reporting on processes and forms, and Entondo will be going much deeper with this to build a fully low-code, no-code experience. So this is a self-service system. Everything here is built drag and drop. Now, the whole demo takes about 35 minutes, and I've compressed it into about 8 minutes. So it's going to be snipping around, showing bits. So what we have here is the menu on the top, which is part of the self-service. And I'm just showing the different charts, the drill downs that give some insight into the expenses tools. This is building an expenses tool for the person who's submitting the expense and for the approver to view those. Right now, this is an administration screen for the approver. So we're going to switch now to the person doing the submissions, and we're going to submit an expense. It's just 2 or 3 minutes to show you what the tool looks like, to show you what we can do, and then I'm going to do another 4 or 5 minutes of actually building the tool. So I think it goes in and it's going to submit 2 expenses. And notice that when you submit, it appears on the right-hand side, and then I can also get an overview of my expenses. Everything here was built without any code. This is the approver, if you notice. The form looks the same, but on you can see the little tick button there. That didn't appear. So the submitter, there's no approval tick box. So you can reuse forms and add more on there for someone that has the additional permissions. and they're going and doing some corrections as well. And there's the admin page for the expenses, so you can see what's been approved in different regions and by who, by date, and by department. So it gives you a full breakdown of these. So now I can switch to pages, and I can go to navigation, and this is where we already have some navigation. So we've now gone back, and I'm going to show you how we build this application. So I'm going to go in and add into our self-service directory the expenses section there. So my expenses and administration. Now, in our tool, the navigation structure is independent of the view. So you build the structure, and then you bind it to how it will be displayed. And it could be displayed in a menu, it could be in a carousel, it could be a tree view. We completely separate the two because what we don't want people to have to be able to do is have to rewrite all their navigation if they decide they want to change the look and feel or the layout. So we completely separate navigation from the view. And you can change the view. So you can be very easy to switch from a menu to a list view. So I'm now going to build the navigation onto my page. So this is the page, it's going to be the home page. And here we go. So there's the navigation group, so it's selecting the group, the default page, and it's added it, and that's it. So now we've built a page, we've added the navigation, and we're going to put, if you remember, there's a text at the top that said, welcome to the self-service directory with Red Hat. We put the HTML in there, and now we have built the home page and the navigation for our self-service system. And we're just updating some of the CSS on the left, so to improve the overall layout there. Everything in here works with permissions. If you do not have permission, you do not get, it will not show the link for the navigation, so it will just will not appear. So if you don't have access to expenses, that menu would not be in the entry there. Oh, so what it showed you there was also you can add navigation to the mega menu as well. So everything can be controlled dynamically within the system. I'm going to build a form now. So the forms that you saw that get dragged onto the page, I'm not going to build all the forms. I'm just showing you how we can build one. All these forms are bootstrapped, which means they are responsive design, can display on mobiles. And you can easily, you can easily start doing columns and nesting, embedding. We don't do any limitation. These are not just simple forms. They can do very powerful layouts. In fact, the mechanisms for pages and forms are the same. Once you've made a form, it becomes a component, and that component can be dragged onto the page. So now what I'm going to do is create the page for expenses submission. And then you can see there, it says data management, my forms are there. I can now add a form onto the page, boom. So I've now made a page that's in our self-service system for my expenses. And now I'm going to add the, if you remember, there was 2 tabs for the expenses submission, and there's another tab for the My Expenses report. So now it's adding the dashboard page. This is going to put 2 charts on there to summarize my current expenses. And then it's just going to switch and show you how to do it for the administration page, which is a bit more complicated. I put these on very quick because it gets very boring if you have to watch this in real time. I don't think people need to see that level of detail. It's to give you an idea of the richness of the system, that there is no code here. There's not someone going in the back end just magically making this all work. Everything is drag and drop. Everything is selectable. We have very advanced layouts. It's all fairly intuitive. Yeah, so on the right-hand side, it's now binding a table. I think I sped this up about 3 times, so it gives you an idea of what it would be like normally. But as I say, the whole demo, not sped up, takes about 35 minutes. So now it's going on to the administration page, and it's building a much more complicated dashboard with a lot more charts, a lot more layout in there, more nesting. You can see how easy it is to get alignments here on the different components and get the layouts that you want. You get indication of whether something's going to be full length or nested with something else. And it was little details like that which were very important. Anytime I've used a drag and drop builder, if they do not allow me to do the layout that I want and don't make it easy, it's incredibly infuriating and frustrating. So it was one of the first things we got right, just to make sure that we had really good flexibility on the layout. While this is going, because I'm going to run out of time, the roadmap for this stuff is going to be all centered around case management. So what we want to do is make sure it is, at the stage where we are now, This is not in GA, by the way. Some of the reporting is. So it's going to go into the security and set some of the security there and hide the pages. But while it's doing that, the reporting is going to be in GA. The ability to drag forms on there is not. And roadmap-wise, we're going to be working towards case management to make sure that we can display cases on there, start cases, show the status of diagrams. So enabling case management. Right now, we have static pages for case management. What we want to be able to do is develop a number of templates. And those templates will be things that you can start with, and then you can customize them for your domain to enable domain-specific case management with our product.